Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Ahmed Hassan. I am from a town called Malindi on the coastal side of Kenya. It's well known a tourist destination, and that's why I'm here to talk about tourism in Somalia, particularly, but in general in East Africa. When the organizers of this forum contacted with me and they told me to talk about tourism in Somalia, the first thing I did was I scratched my head and I'm like, tourism in Somalia? It was a kind of strange to talk about tourism in a country that is going through a lot of difficult stuff. So I told them I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm going to see what we will come up with that. The topics that I'm going to cover actually are three of them. So I'm going to talk about what is tourism industry, and today. These are very brief things, but the main discussion will be the assessment of the tourism chain of the tourism industry, and this is where probably we'll spend a little bit time, and it will give us an answer to the question that I was asked about the feasibility of tourism in Somalia. I'm going to talk a little bit faster, just to save time. What is a tourism? Everybody knows about tourism. We're all tourists here. Anybody who leaves his home for the purpose of business, pleasure, whatever reason, for a number of days or maybe weeks, and intends to come back to his home or residence, is a tourist. And I'm sure that most of you must have gone outside of your residence once a year or once in your lifetime. So at any given time, some of us were tourists in our lives. Why do people go on a tourism? People go out for different reasons. Some of them go because of ecotourism. This is some of the reasons why people go and visit different wildlife sanctuaries. They go and see wildlife parks. They go for leisure. They go to visit historical places. They go for religion purposes. They go for health. They go for conferences like we are doing right now. And another interesting phenomenon that's coming up now is something called war tourism. This is a company based in America. Americans, they never stop to amaze me. They came up with something called Untamed Borders. What they do is they organize trips to go to places where there has been a war recently, or there is a war going on, as a leisure trip or a tourism trip. This group, they contacted with me about, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they told me that they have a trip coming up. They will start from Harar in Ethiopia, going through an area where there was a recent clashes in Somalia, the Somali region in Ethiopia, and then they will drive me through to Somaliland, and then we will end up in Mogadishu. That's about 14 days, and it's going to cost me about $5,000. And they were like, "Are you interested to join us?" kind of thing. So there are different reasons why people will come for tourism. This one is the one that I put it last because we do have a very good regional market, and this is where probably we should target, or Somalia should target mostly. An example, I took it over there, is Ethiopia. Ethiopia has a very good airline, right? One of the best in Africa, and obviously the best in East Africa. They bring millions of people through Addis Ababa every year. Their target, I think, right now they bring about 7 million people, but their target is over 20 million by the year 2022, somewhere there. It's a landlocked country, so they don't have beaches. It is full of historical places, starting from the Islamic civilization, where the first hijrah took place, and they met Najah, and so on and so forth. So we can piggyback on these guys. Like when they bring in tourism, we can basically tell them, why don't you bring in those tourisms with me? So this is an advantage that we have. But the most important thing is this figure. And this is what I want you guys to understand with me. Maybe let me just make it bigger. It's gonna work out. Yeah, it is. Okay. This is, if we understand this slide, then we will be able to answer the question if tourism is feasible in Somalia. If you look at it, we have tourists, whether it's the red one is the local tourist and the blue one is the international tourist. It doesn't matter. The second one is the direct service providers, and we'll ask ourselves, do we have those kind of direct service providers? And the third one is the support institutions. So do we have those support institutions? If we're able to answer these questions, then we will be able to answer if tourism is feasible in Somalia. The first one, when I want to make an arrangement, is I want to decide where to go. What comes to my mind is travel agents and tour guides. Do we have travel agents and tour guides in Somalia? From what I understand is we have about 250 travel agents in Somalia. Do they have contacts and connections in and outside of Somalia to be able to make the networking that's necessary? But more importantly is the tourist promotion center. This is now, this part is from the government side. This is the support institution that's needed. So do we have a tourist support center, promotion center where the country is promoted outside the country? Then after I have decided to come to Somalia, I need something to take me to Somalia. So that's the transport side. So do we have airlines going to Somalia? Fortunately, yes, we have so many airlines. We have Dalo, we have Juba, which belong to Somalis. We have Ethiopian Airline, Turkish Airline, Al Arabiya, Fly Dubai, and so on and so forth. There should be railways, buses, and so on and so forth. When they come in, there should be immigration agencies, immigration services. There should be airports, so at the airport should be able to have the capacity to receive people. Does it have that capacity to receive people? There should be customs and so on and so forth. So once I come into the country with, and right now is aeroplane, then I need to go to the hotel, to the accommodation. So you ask yourselves, now, are there hotels available? Are there guest houses? Are there resorts? A friend of mine told me that if in Somalia today, we build one hotel complete per day for the next 10 years, we will not be able to meet the demand for hotels in Somalia. So you can imagine that, like, we're talking of one hotel per day for 10 years, that's 3,650 hotels for 10 years, and still it's not going to be able to meet the demand of what we're talking about, the potential for tourists to come to Somalia. That's another thing. When we talk about the constructions, we have accommodation, we're talking about the construction companies. Do we have the capacity to construct hotels, and so on and so forth? Then, once they go to the hotels, they need something to eat. So we need restaurants, we need fast food, we need coffee shops, and so on and so forth. So we have that infrastructure in place. After that one, they need entertainment, they need places to go, watch maybe Wyatt, as they used to call it. Maybe go and do some sort of karaoke singing, or I don't know, maybe go disco or whatever is allowed. You need to go and do some shopping. So are there malls that people can go and do some shopping where you need to spend money? And for that one, you will need a local transport. Are there buses? Are there taxis? Are there things that are available that will take me from one point to another point? And so on and so forth. Then you need to visit interesting places. You need to be able to visit museums. You need to be able to visit beaches. You need to be able to visit national parks, and so on and so forth. So do those things exist? And these things now comes under the Ministry of maybe Tourism, Ministry of Natural Resources, and so on and so forth. Others come under the Ministry of Department of Planning and Investment, or Economic Planning and Investment, to be able to decide how many hotels that the country needs to build, and so on and so forth, until the person leaves and goes back to his country. Besides all this, when you come into the hotel and when you're doing the shopping, when you're eating food, you need to pay money. So are there banking system? Can you use your card, your Visa card? Most of the people nowadays, especially people coming from Western countries, they live on credit cards. So are you allowed to use your credit card? Is there a system in Somalia that will be acceptable at the hotels and at the shopping malls where you can use your credit cards? That's another thing that comes to my mind. Anything can happen to you while you are staying in Somalia. So are there hospitals? Are there clinics? Is the insurance acceptable? Like when I was coming to this conference, I had to buy travel insurance. So is travel insurance acceptable in Somalia? So these are the questions that as I plan my tourism in Somalia, coming to my mind. Okay, thanks. Yeah. Now, obviously, for tourism to succeed, I don't know if you can see this one, security is the mother of all tourism. You can spend 10 years to build tourism, like as we did in Kenya, maybe 10, 15 years to build a tourism. But it took us only 2 days to destroy that industry. Like if you remember, there was an election in Kenya in 2007, and there was some fightings, and people got killed, and with that died the tourism industry. And it took us another 5 years to revive it again. So security is very, very important when it comes to tourism. So you can have all your structures, all your systems and processes in place. If you don't have security, forget about the tourism. No one will want to come unless, of course, you go to that American company called the untamed bodies. On a light note, this is a lion. He's a famous lion called Notch. About 2 years ago, everybody thought he died in Kenya. And then he appeared about 3 weeks ago, and we were so excited. Like he came back with, with 5 cubs alone. He raised them alone. Everybody thought that he died 2 years ago. This particular lion, if you go to, if you are interested in the National Geography, the animal side, there is a whole documentary from the time he was young until he grew up. He conquered 12 out of the 22 known prides in Masai Mara. So he had a lot of children, and he was really a king in Masai Mara. And then all of a sudden he became older and he disappeared, and everybody thought that he died, only to reappear about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, with 5 kids that he managed to raise them all by himself. So that was really, an exciting story for people who are in the tourism industry, like myself, for that. So, thank you very much.